Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Mark.
Steve, Rick, and we just finished playing Paladins of the West Kingdom, which is one of Shem Phillips' games, and I will say this is definitely the heaviest of any of his games. The artwork, again, is very nice, as before in all his previous games, but essentially you are trying to score points. It's a worker placement game by going up on lots of different tracks. You have I think this was it Faith and Strength and Influence or something like this? But effectively you've got 3 different kinds of tracks. You're trying to get your black, red and blue as high as you can. In terms of actually playing the game, there's a few interesting things happens here. The first thing everyone does is they draw 3 cards from their deck. Now everyone's deck is identical, but obviously they're shuffled, so you're getting them in a slightly different order. And you're going to pick one of these to put back on the top of your deck. You're going to pick another one that goes on the bottom of your deck, so that's probably, you're not going to see that for a long time. And then the third one's the one you actually use. And it goes in this spot here, and it does a couple of things. Firstly, it's going to get you workers. In this case, I'm going to get a black and a blue worker. So you take a blue and black worker, and they kind of do different things, these different colours of workers. You add them to your supply. And then we also, in sort of turn order, get to pick these cards, which gives us a pile more workers. So I'm going to take this one, say, and everyone else would take one of those. And this gets me more workers. I get 2 greens, a black and a purple, but the purple are particularly good because when you get a purple one, these are wild. Purple can be any colour worker you like. However, when you get one of these, you also take a suspicion card. And this can get you money. That's great. You add it to your number of suspicions cards here, and you take it from a special place, not the usual bank, but there's always kind of 8 coins seated here. And in this case, as you can see, I'll be taking 2 coins. Now, the interesting thing is, when these coins run out, then there's a kind of Spanish Inquisition. And essentially you look and see who has the most of those suspicion cards, and whoever has the most takes some debt, which is going to be worth minus 3 points. That's the kind of negative victory point symbol at the end of the game. So you can potentially pick up debt that way. There are ways to kind of flip it over if you manage to clear your debts and avoid the penalty points. But then you'd also lose half of your intrigue cards if you had the most. So that intrigue is interesting. It's a good way of getting money, but then you're potentially going to get debt and lose points. And But the purple workers, these are wild. What do you actually do with the workers? Well, you have this player board, and most of the time you're going to be playing on this board here. And there's a number of different things you could do. So, for example, there's 2 main resources in the game, which are money and provisions. If you want to get provisions, you go hunting. So you can stick 1 worker on this space and just get 1 provision. But if you pair it with a green worker, and I don't have a green worker, but remember that the purple are wild, so I could do that. Then instead of getting only 1, I would get 3. You could do a similar thing with trade. So if I put these here instead, you're getting up to 3 coins that way. So that's how you're getting those. If you can spy, you can stick any worker on here, and that's how you can get a purple worker. But remember, you're going to be taking these suspicion cards again there. This spot is quite nice. If you pray, you've got to pay a bit of money, but you get to clear the workers off one of the space. So if you needed more purple workers, you can put that there to get the purple worker. But then when you pray, you can clear that off, it goes away, and then you can stick another guy on here and get another purple worker. So the praying thing's quite important. Recruiting is one way of getting cards. There's a bunch of cards you can have during the game that give you like special abilities, and you get them from the kind of centre here. There's a selection of possible cards. But you can, when you get them, you either get them for the kind of one-shot ability at the top right, so that would get rid of one of your debts, or you can acquire them, and you're getting this kind of ability at the bottom left, and they're going to help you in all kinds of different ways. So I'll perhaps come back to how they help you. But that's how you're getting the green cards then. On the other side of your player board then, you've got 6 main actions, which all essentially require you to have 1 kind of track, so in this case the black, and give you the blue kind of track. So you have to put the workers on here. So for example, if you wanted to absolve, you'd need a black, anything you like, and a blue. Now notice these green houses, they actually sort of are like a permanent worker that, I mean, you don't need that there, and you'd only need, in this case, anything you like, and a black. And that's what the develop action is. So you can stick any 2 workers here, pay 4 coins, and stick one of these green houses on, which incidentally, when you place them, it gives you extra workers as well. And these actions then, so if I go through them, this one is placing these things. So you'd have to pay whatever you're up to, in this case it'd be 2 provisions, and you have to have a certain requirement of black. Now these things are getting placed on this board. You can see there's lots of these black things that have been placed here. So to place on a particular level, you don't need anything to place on a starting level, but you'd need 2 on the black track, or 4, 8, 6, 8, etc. So if you wanted to place in one of these free spots, you'd need to have 6 on your black track. But whenever you do that, you can reveal one of these, and it gives you 1 on your blue track, and that would make your blue track go up. So this, you need to have black, but it gives you increases on your blue track. The other thing your guy does, your paladin, when you choose him at the start of the round, is he adds a temporary bonus to 2 tracks. So in this case, I'm getting a temporary +3 to my blue track and a temporary +1 to my red track. So that can be quite helpful if you don't quite have your tracks high enough to do these. So the fortify action, you need to have blue, and this is where you just sort of take a card from here and you're adding it to this sort of castle wall here, but you can see the requirements here. You need to have 5, 7, 8, etc. On the blue track already. Obviously to start with, it's quite cheap, and that gets you increases on the red track. So again, you can see this needs to have blue, and it increases you on the red. Garrison's very similar. You're placing the red things on here, but the red requirements here are 5, 7, etc. And then you're going to get black, because every time you place a red, it reveals a black, which means you go up on the black track. So that's those ones. And then the bottom set, the last ones are, you can absolve, which is these kind of pots. The requirements written on the pot, so if you've already maybe put those out, you'd need to have 3 on the blue track. It would give you 1 on the black track, and you get to put it on here, which will give you some kind of special ability. If you covered the purple thing there, for example, that would get rid of one of your suspicion cards. This lets you get one of the green cards for free. This will flip over one of your debts. This is like the praying, clears one. So there's lots of kind of special things you can get from that, and you always get an extra clearing suspicion card anyway from that one. Attacking then is the final kind of set of cards. Are these heathens in foreign lands, and essentially there's 2 things you can do with them. You can either just outright kill them. So if you go and attack them, then you need to have the requirements on the red. So for example, to attack this armourer here, you need to have 7 on the red track. And when you kill him, you're going to get stuff at the right. So it's going to give you increases on the blue track, plus a white worker, plus some provisions. Or the other main option is you can convert them to your religion. And when you do that, you take the card and you're going to get the thing at the bottom. So in this case, that's going to give you a move on the red track. And then at the end of the game, you're going to get a victory point for every 4 you are sort of on your red track here at the end. So there's quite a bit of end game scoring for actually converting these guys and getting them to on your side, and they kind of go down at the bottom, and you've got to pay extra coins when you do that. So a lot of different actions, and there's also some end game scoring things you can go for. So these kind of get gradually revealed as you go through the game, but that's for killing a certain number of guys, getting a certain number of those black things out. This is for fortifying, doing the kind of castle thing at the top. But those vary from game to game. And then as you go through the game, each round you reveal another one of these action spaces that are available to everybody, but you kind of block them when you use them and you stop other people using them. So this one, you can put a purple guy on here and get 3 white guys. Or stick a black guy here, get rid of one of your suspicion cards, and get 2 money. But again, it's the red money, comes from here, which could trigger the Spanish Inquisition. So an awful lot going on. You play the game over 7 rounds, trying to get up all the different tracks. You can see at the end of the game they're going to be worth points, this yellow symbol here on the right, depending on how far you got up. If you clear all your houses, you're getting points. If you clear these tracks and buildings, you're going to get points. Clear all your pots. Points, points, points. Lots of tracks and points, and most points wins. What do we think?
Well, I'm exhausted after playing this because there's a lot of planning that goes on in your turn. There's a lot of individual mechanisms that are quite nice in it, in that I do like the engine building from you recruiting people. There's a lot of ways to score, as Jonathan said. We have mostly done sort of different things here and there. The paladin choice is quite important. What A, the workers, and B, what do you need around, especially when you may be later in the choosing which workers you get at the start of the round, so you need to ensure what you get. There's a lot of nice things to it, but it's not for me. I think it's... we played Fleet the Dice game recently and said that's a head-down game. This is another head-downs game, but this took us 2.5 hours. And around turn 5, I was already starting to go, kind of ready. I've done enough of what I'm doing now that I'm just starting to tire of what I'm doing. I guess it did have more length in it, though I think we're all going to say there was almost like a round too many with the amount we were able to complete our boards. I can see a lot of people liking this if they don't want to be affected by any other player around the table, because 95% of this game, until right at the end, you're not going to be affected by the players to this table. But for me, it was just like, I'm planning that, and I'll do that, then I'll do that, then I'll do that, and occasionally I look up going, I hope they don't do that for me. Other than maybe like the Inquisition, where you might get done in because you happen at the wrong time to have the highest amount of cards in your deck.
Steve?
It feels a bit like Orleans. If you played Orleans, you kind of you're putting cogs as place the houses. You get different colour workers who are good at doing different sort of actions, but without the bag building aspect. So basically, at the start of your turn, you've got a lot more choice about what colour workers you will have that turn, and then there's even the spaces you can go to upgrade a worker to a purple worker and the wild. There's more interaction early on, but there is not much. Basically, it all comes down to someone stealing something before you. If Mark and Jonathan were attacking a lot, they attacked loads over the course of the game, which benefits them. They move up on the tracks, which means they can attack easier, or they can attack further down, or they get better built fortifications. But Rick and I, we didn't really do it. So, that interaction, I'm not involved in. I kind of did something on my own. I kind of was putting the black or the commissions out, and my black track went higher than everyone else's. I make sure I need to put the commissions further out there. And once it got to the point where it was so far ahead, I'm like, they can't actually take any of the spots I'm going to. I've kind of done my engine, a bit differently to them. It is very much a heads down Euro game, but there's a lot of thought. You can technically skip someone's turn, so Mark might do an action here and finish off. Oh, brilliant! Okay, that won't impact the board. Okay, I can do mine a bit. So, although we were thinking a lot and it was very brain burny, it actually played moderately quick-ish. There are some thought, and there are going to be turns where you go, oh, no, I can't do that because I need this colour worker, or if I do this first, I'll be able to put a house down, which will make that cheaper. But then you've got that dilemma, they might come into there. The Spanish Inquisition is really nice. It gives you the main source of interaction over the course of the game, and there are a lot of cards that, especially the people cards, which either benefit from getting loans or benefit from not having any of the suspicion cards. But I think it's a turn too long. I got to the penultimate turn of the game, and I got to the end of majority of the tracks I was focusing on with my strategy, and so my last round felt a bit of a letdown, and it happens a bit in early on as well. You get to the end of some of your tracks, or the fish tokens run out, or not the fish, that's Altiplano, but you get the idea. A particular type of resource runs out, and then the strategy you're doing you can't do anymore. You've got to kind of switch, and what you're switching to you're less efficient at. So it feels like this game, I would have been happy if it ended a round earlier. Mark might not have been as tired. I would have done what I needed to do without having that last round where I'm just kind of saying, how many coins do I need to score an extra point kind of thing.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, I echo everything that's been said. Extra round too many, and some really, really nice mechanics. I do like drafting the people at the beginning and setting up your next turn, and so seeing someone you're not going to see for a little while. I think actually, when I compare it to actually the last video I did with you guys, which was Architects of the West Kingdom, this predecessor, I think one of the things that I miss is some theme, actually, because we're putting up the red track, the black track, and they meant something, but we lost track of what they were within a turn, and you can commission, and I don't know what the commission does, and I struggled to buy into it. Whereas before, you started with someone and they had a level of virtue, and they responded in different ways, and theme's not everything, but it does help you engage. Perhaps when you are lagging like Mark was, you lose a bit of something there. So yeah, it seemed to lack a bit of theme for me.
Rating?
I'm going to go 7.
Okay. Steve?
Not sure how many times I want to play it again, even though I did enjoy the thinking aspect. 6.5?
Okay.
Yeah, 6.5 for me.
All right. Yes, I'd agree with everything they said. It is too long, both in terms of how long it physically takes to play the game and the number of rounds in the game. It really should finish a round earlier, I think. We were all at the end going, well, what can we do? All the cards we would want to acquire have gone. I'm already at the top of this track. I've exhausted all the buildings on that track. There's not much left to do. And yeah, I agree with Rick. The previous one was definitely more thematic, Architects of the West Kingdom. This feels like the themes have been a little bit pasted on. Having said that, the actual thinking is very interactive in terms of, if I do this to get that will give me this, like in terms of trying to connect the different sorts of tracks and things, but not very interactive between the people. So be aware of that. But the thinking processes themselves, I did really enjoy. So I think it's a very solid game. As long as you're happy with a lack of interaction between the people, then I think it's fine. I would give it a 7 out of 10. All right, thanks for watching. That was Paladins of the West Kingdom.